Hey everyone, welcome to the Car Dealership Guy Industry Spotlight. I'm your host, Sam Dark, COO here at the Ziegler Auto Group. Coming up this episode, a conversation with David Steinberg, CEO of Foureyes. David and Foureyes are challenging AI to actually increase unit sales, and they're using a new KPI to drive that expectation. One he believes drives closing rate better than any other KPI currently in existence. Today, we share that with you, and we talk about the factors driving that KPI. Also today, we talk about the chaos surrounding data ownership and rapidly evolving data laws across the United States. Let's get into it. So David, it's interesting thinking about your company, Foureyes, having done some research. You guys are the gurus and the experts on all things sales process. You've built companies that have focused on that. You eat, sleep, drink it. And here's the question I have for you as we get into today's show. There are so many solutions out there that help us in the automotive world. The Ziegler Auto Group, 41 stores, 4 states, 2,700 employees. We sell 4,000 to 5,000 cars a month. There are so many solutions between DMS, CRM, all these digital lead providers. Everybody has their own A, data set, and B, metric and way of looking at reporting. And I'm telling you, they are all different. And one of the challenges we have sometimes is seeing how each one of those tools ends up moving that total unit sold or furthering that customer experience in a truly meaningful way. How do you guys think about it? What is the best way to look from a reporting standpoint and from a tool standpoint to further that unit sold and or bettering that customer experience?
Yeah, I think that like when we first started Foureyes and we said, okay, we want to help the salesperson sell more cars, right? And that's a number that hasn't moved in 30 years. We said, okay, we built we have a patent on connecting the phone call to the web visit. So we first built this technology that allowed us to see like, okay, when someone calls off the website, let's understand everything they've done on the website. We started looking at all that data and then let's follow their sales activity into the CRM. And we built a massive integration engine that could actually understand what was happening in the CRM. We thought that we were going to find this like golden orb, this like magical KPI where we could measure this and we could open it up and we could say, this is the KPI to measure. And if this is good, you're doing great. And if it's not, you're doing poorly. And so we seeded a data science team. We have like, I think the best data science team in the industry. We've been in the New York Times, the Financial Times, like our data science stuff has been all over the place. And what we discovered was there wasn't that magical orb, that we couldn't find it. We actually gave up. Where we saw, okay, sales is really sales process, marketing, inventory. It's a three-legged stool. Sales process is really the most important, that there's no such thing as a great dealer with bad sales process. But that was kind of the extent of it. And what's been interesting is what's happened with AI is we started looking closer at what was happening. And we started seeing that AI was creating a lot more conversations with users. But again, it wasn't moving the needle. It wasn't actually changing the end outcome. And we started
David,
looking...
how in this case do you define AI? Because AI is all over the place. Is it the ability to have a text conversation, a voice conversation, matching data?
Yeah, what I'm really talking about is generative AI, where people are employing tools that are going out and having conversations via text, via email, via voice with their consumers.
So it can engage, but it's not meaningfully moving the ball, which is fair.
It's not moving the ball, and I think there's a lot of structural reasons why that isn't. So we started saying, well, what is really going on here? What is really good sales process? And what we realized is happening underneath, behind every great dealer that has great sales process, there's something they're doing organically that they don't even realize and is not really being measured. And that's what we would call match rate. And, if you think about buying a car, right? What's happening is you're coming in with something you want, and good sales process is leveraging their inventory to match what you're looking for with what they have, right? That's what a good BDC rep, that's what good sales process does. They're doing that organically. And what we saw was that a lot of the AI that's being built right now is driving towards appointments. Come in for an appointment, come in for an appointment, come in. But it's not actually improving match rate. And so we said, well, what happens if we reverse the problem and we build AI that's solely designed to increase match rate? And so, because what happens...
And David, match rate, you're defining as the ability of taking that consumer and matching them to the vehicle or to the product need efficiently and effectively, and then using that match to then drive to the appointment, right? Whereas right now they're just trying to go to an appointment for who knows what what reason?
They're just trying to go to an
Yeah.
appointment. And so if you look at it, if you look more closely, what happens is like the match data is horribly represented in the CRM, right? So even when somebody has a specific VIN, right? Sometimes that's a bullseye. Sometimes it's perfect. Hey, they're looking for this. This is the car they want. But a lot of times what's not coming out is, no, they're actually looking for a car with third row seating. And they're open to a bunch of stuff with third row seating. Or they're looking for a truck that can tow 7,000 pounds. But they want these colors. And a lot of the soft data that we actually get by watching their website activity, by seeing their website activity, by collecting that other data and saying, wait, how do we extract that information so when we hand it to the salesperson, it's as teed up and the salesperson is then doing that extra value?
That is such a great point, because I think about some of our best salespeople across our auto group. We have one salesperson in the Chicagoland that sells nearly 100 cars a month. His ability to match rate with that consumer is unparalleled. So a good salesperson can get to that point faster than anyone else. A poor salesperson kind of wanders around it, is having a tough time figuring out when and how to ask the question. That's a fair point. So it's the connection on a human level, and then it's the ability to compare up that match rate. So you then take some metrics and collect that data using AI.
Well, and I think we've now built, like what we're launching at NADA and what's we've released and we have dealers now using is the AI that's specifically designed to improve match rate, because that is the only thing we've found that directly correlates to improving sales outcomes. Because, if you look, like, for instance, when you see a lot of AI that does a really good job expanding the breadth of who a dealership's communicating with, of going, okay, I'm going to take these leads that you're not communicating with, and we're going to go out and we're going to talk to them more, and we're going to have more conversations. What's happening is they're just swapping customers. They're just selling a vehicle to maybe a different customer that they would have sold it to somebody else with. But what they're not actually doing is improving match rate. And when you look at that, what you start to see is not all sales are equal. There are some vehicles that are easy to sell. It's like, hey, you have plenty of leads on these vehicles. You're going to sell these all day long. You don't actually need any additional technology to sell more of certain vehicles that you have no problem moving. But there's some stuff over here that you're really struggling with, and you're not matching consumers to that. And what happens is, and you see this in your own stores, is salespeople inherently just sell the stuff that's easy for them to sell. And so,
or there's a bonus on potentially or something like
that. So the goal is like, how do you really improve match rate? And that's where, like, I think, we've learned a lot from having like our prospect engagement module that's basically been doing that, a more rustic form of that for 8 years, where it's going out and it's recommending inventory based off what the user is looking at. And we've done studies where we can see that we do a control group and we turn it off, and we see like it improves close rate by 26%, not from 10 to 36%, but from like 10 to 12.6%. That doing that process brings the customer back. And so how do you have AI that actually improves match rate, but sets the salesperson up for success? Like when you look at gross on a vehicle, the problem is so many dealers are trying to say, how do we get rid of the salesperson in the exchange, or how do we minimize their role?
We don't believe in that. We believe technology will help deliver our best experience to every single customer through the salesperson. It's still a human experience, right? But that's what you're doing. You're helping the salesperson better their match rate, right?
Yeah. If you look at gross, like high gross comes when there's this relationship between the salesperson and the consumer. When it's low gross on vehicles, it's you have a shopper who's just shopped you, beat you up, doesn't have a relationship, the salesperson hasn't added value in it, and they've just basically come in and you go, okay, fine, we'll sell this vehicle. And so like salespeople adding value is the difference in gross per vehicle. And so we want to set salespeople up for that as much as we can. And I think like the CRM's been a horrible container. So like the bad CSI scores that dealers get on the shopping experience, what we see is that is essentially an institutional memory problem. That what the buyers report, and we see this all the time when we interview shoppers and we go through their experience and we look at the CRM, is buyers go, there's no institutional memory of the dealership. That I have a phone call, and then I come in, and then I repeat, and then I talk to this person, then I repeat myself, then I call, and then I'm on a hold for 3 minutes, and I'm told to call back, and there's no build up, that everything's not building on itself. A lot of the AI tools are now exasperating that problem, because they're going out and they're having a conversation on the left hand that's being not really shared shared to the salesperson on the right hand. And again, the current CRMs are bad containers of this information. So if you just leave a note for every intersection in the CRM, you're going to have a CRM that's 170 entries of activity that no salesperson's ever going to go through.
Can't possibly read it, summarize it, understand it, digest it. There's no way. Yeah.
Not at scale. No, not at all. And so like, it's sort of we're creating a monster. There's sort of this monster where we're doing a lot of cool things. There's a lot of cool products out there. There's people doing great work, but is it moving the needle? And are we actually solving the right problems?
So this match rate is fascinating. And I want to ask what goes into it in just a minute. But one of the things you talked about earlier, the less popular inventory that may not be moving as fast, that may potentially be aging, both new and used, is part of your idea with this match rate. Does it help to eliminate, speed up the turn on that? That actually in and of itself would help grosses because it's less expensive inventory with potentially better margins. If you match to that, you'll turn it faster potentially. Is that kind of part of what you're saying?
Yeah, like who are the consumers where that inventory matches what they're looking for? Yeah. Because a lot of times what's happening is they're not, if you look at a lot of this unpopular inventory, it's got like 0 leads, 1 lead in the CRM. But then there's another set of data, which is, okay, who are the people that have looked at things or searched for things or done stuff? Or if we ask one more question, we might find out that piece of inventory actually works for them. So how do we build AI that does that, right? That's the Foureyes.
So how do you deliver this match rate? What does the match rate look like? And what are the factors that go into this?
Yeah. So what's interesting now is as we've sort of stumbled on this like key metric, we're saying, okay, how do we make measurement rules that we can draw a circle around, we can hold, because what happens with measurement is if you start changing the rules over time, it's garbage. Right. You can't have any sort of long tail reporting on it. So that's what we're doing right now is saying, okay, let's define what is match rate and how do we draw that circle around it. So for instance, one of the reasons why third-party leads that the OEMs are delivering don't perform well at all is the match rate data there is horrible. There's not even a trim in a lot of these vehicles. So it's leaving the salesperson up to do all of that heavy lifting on match.
So so when you say it's horrible, because that doesn't include trim data, so there's not the details of what the consumer has expressed interest in as it relates to that vehicle in the lead. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you don't have, if I say I'm interested, I want a Ram 1500, what does that mean? Right. Do I want a utility vehicle? Am I looking for a work truck? Am I looking for a 2-door? What am I looking for? Like trim level is going to tell us a lot about the consumer. It's going to tell us where they think their relative value is and what they sort of value. Color tells us a lot about the vehicle. Additional features, what else the customer looked at. Like all of that data is giving us indications what they searched for, what they filtered for, is giving us indications of what their potential, it's sort of soft data. And I believe in like soft first party data. I think the more you sort of try to expand in third party data, like there's a lot of tools where it's like, oh, well, let's find out how many kids they have and this and this and this. And I think that's diminishing returns. I think that focus on your first party data that you're getting, it tends to tell you the best story. But then how do you then go out and use AI to go, okay, but we're trying to move this inventory. Where can we make matches? And what information am I missing about the consumer that's not allowing me to make that match? And that's where you add value, right? Like, so if you look at like the other CSI problem that customers report all the time is aggressive selling. And aggressive selling, being aggressive and adding value, the customer does not report that as aggressive selling. They report aggressive selling as come in for an appointment, come in for an appointment, come in for an appointment.
Ooh, that's good. Aggressive selling and providing value is not negative CSI. What is negative? What is negative CSI is aggressive selling as a road to nowhere.
Yeah, so, no value.
Yeah, without value. Without value. That's the trigger, right? I love that. That is, okay.
Yeah, and so like how do you add value in every intersection, right? And that's where we see like inventory is the asset. Like they're buying a car from you. They're not buying your family value. They're not buying that you guys have you have 41 stores and you've been around for this many years and your philanthropy. That's not why they're buying a car.
We hope they like the philanthropy though. We hope that they love the way it feels to buy from us. But yes, I get that. In that moment, they want their need met, right? And how quickly we deliver that value is going to determine their ability to buy.
Yeah, someone else said this, and I'm stealing this from someone, so give them credit. I don't know who it is, but the car is the star. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like the car is the star. So it's like, well, so adding value is about, and again, that's where I say like, good sales process has been inherently doing this for the last 100 years, which is, hey, this is what we have. This is why this is a good match for you.
So your AI is taking things that salespeople have naturally inherently done that a lot of other technology companies out there just don't even think about. And it's seeking to replicate that, understanding multiple different preferences that the customer is demonstrating early on in the process, and then matching those back up using AI to inventory that you actually have, not inventory you could have or you might have or someone else has, but actual vehicles that you have in your inventory.
Yeah, and by understanding what information is missing in us understanding what you're actually looking for.
Okay.
Right. So building AI that's saying, okay, because again, like if someone is interested in a specific bin, if they fill out a VDP form and it's like, okay, I got it. That is a clue as to what they're looking for. That is at this moment in time, this feature, this vehicle was interested in that. But that doesn't actually, if they can't buy that vehicle or it doesn't work out with that vehicle, that you don't necessarily, the only thing, the playbook is, we'll find another exact one of the exact same that we exactly have. And that's a perfect scenario. So it's like, if we can understand, okay, what is it you're actually, can we match inventory to what you're looking for? So a lot of it's like, okay, you were looking at this. Are these other vehicles of interest to you, right? And having the conversation, there's soft data that comes back in that. A lot of it is, okay, let's look at their website activity and see if we can determine more soft information about what they're looking for than they're actually telling us. Have they only looked at certain colors? Have they only looked at certain things, or have they searched for things or filtered for things? And then what is the soft data hiding in the CRM? Because like there might be a note on the CRM from a month and a half ago that they're towing their boat, but it's buried 14 rows up, and nobody's reading that anymore.
Yeah.
So like my point is like stripping out all that data. If you load, like we know enough about building with AI. If you load all that information into AI, if you just take all that information and you don't clean it, you just give it to AI, it's going to have a crazy conversation with the consumer.
Yeah.
So it's about the prep work before it gets to AI to clean and organize that and give it to then you give that to the AI and you give it the mission to represent the inventory.
So then your data scientists have been working on this, and presumably you've got this in product form. It's sitting in deal. What have been the results? And then as a sales consultant sitting there getting this, as I go out to engage with that person in person, what does that result look like to me? Like how do I engage with that information, that data match?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, the car is a star. Let's match it, but let's not try to sell, and let's tee up salespeople for opportunities. Like my mission in sales process is, I believe the more you can put swagger in the step of your salespeople, the better they do.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. That's confidence, right? That's confidence. And people
right?
love confidence, and that's value in and of itself. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is like, again, this goes back to like part of the software problem in automotive. So much software is built to tell you you're doing stuff wrong. It's easy to tell you're doing stuff wrong. Beep, buzz. Guess what? No one likes bad news.
Yeah.
Right. So like our thing is like, how do you give people good news? How do you tell people, hey, this person's still in market. They're looking at this, and this, and they're ready to talk to you. You can have a conversation, and they're going to be nice. They're going to be pleasant. They're going to be excited to talk to you. So how do we match people up quickly, connecting them? Like we have, like what we're doing now is like, how do we enable connections that take the customer no time, where the customer's talking to the salesperson as fast as we possibly can. So like during working hours, when we've matched and the customer's ready to talk to a salesperson, what we're measuring is how fast can we then get a hold of the salesperson and get them engaging with the customer.
Okay.
And because we want to offer, when you look at great CSI, again, you got to respect their time.
Yeah. So that's part of the value in the match rate. That's part of the value in the match rate. So the AI that you've got is helping on multiple different fronts to further the match rate by making sure that individual steps happen, getting the consumer once they're ready in front of the salesperson, providing data or reporting to the salesperson that helps them once that customer's there on the floor to put them in that right vehicle.
And value, right? Like this is the challenge. So generative AI looked really cool as it's come out. Like, look, it can have this two-way, it can talk to you and it can do it. But talking to you and adding value are two different things. And right, how many times have you had that great salesperson or that salesperson that was a great talker and you thought they were going to crush it, but then they couldn't convert to sales because they didn't understand the dance. And for us, what we're saying is let's restrict AI to improving match rate because we know that correlates to sales. And then let's hand it over to a salesperson and say, how do we tee them up and make sure they're taking all of that institutional memory that just happened and building on that? They're not just they're not starting from scratch with the consumer.
So so when we talk about, and I asked you a little earlier, what are the quantifiable increases or benefits that have been created by the product? What are the outcomes? What are the dollars saved, efficiencies? Like, how do you think about the match?
Yeah, our number one thing is, as a sales enablement company, we are, and being sort of obsessed with sales process, our number one thing is close rate. We want to increase close rate, right? That's like we call that an output metric. So match rate's like an input metric, where it's like, we know if we can increase match rate, it increases close rate. So, but our output metric is close rate.
And it goes up as you've implemented this.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes up, and I think I think this is where being a sales process company is really interesting, because you have to look at what are the things the dealership is doing that are both affecting bad performance, right? Like, so for instance, the amount of times you see a dealer struggling and they start to buy a bad lead source because they think they need more leads, and they introduce 1%, 2% closing leads into their sales floor. That kills the sales team. Yeah. Right. Like,
that reduces confidence, because they're like, hey, these are all terrible.
These are all terrible leads.
They're not real. And then you start passing up real opportunities because you can't see them through the poor lead.
Exactly. Right. So, like, you look at like a struggling OEM starts pumping leads into your CRMs, saying, okay, we're now buying these leads for you. And they think they're helping. They're actually hurting the dealership. Right. The other thing we saw, like in COVID, that was crazy, was as labor became a problem, you started seeing salespeople being the amount of leads per salesperson has gone up dramatically. Yeah. That they're handling. And you see these good salespeople where you got your guy selling 100 leads, selling 100 deals a month. Yeah. That's a star. But let's talk about the person that's selling 40 or 30. Great performer. How many leads are they sitting on? How many should they be selling based on the amount of leads they're sitting on? We see sometimes people where we're like, look, I know that they're they're selling 40 cars, but if you divided these leads differently, you should be closing them much higher than you are. You're happy with their 40 cars, but you're giving them all of your at bats that you're good at bats.
So you're going to be at NADA here in New Orleans in January, later on in the month, and you'll be talking about that. You'll be talking about match rate as an input metric. You'll be talking about close rate as an output metric.
We'll be demoing our tool live.
Tell us a little bit about what you're bringing to NADA and what you have in store for everyone.
Yeah, so booth 3563 NADA, but we will be demoing our new stuff. We will be signing up for free trials. People can free trial our stuff, 30 days, free trial, try it out. Proof is in the pudding. No automatic enrollment. We have to sell you at the end of 30 days. And I think too, like, if you know Foureyes, I mean, you know Foureyes a little bit from your auto group, and you know how aggressive we are about getting the right data, and I do think that, like, one of the things that's driving me crazy a little bit is it's still a problem people aren't talking about, which is the data access problem. And you kind of alluded to that in the beginning. We have all this data, and we still have issues that are so stupid that people aren't even raising their hands and saying, whoa, this is bullshit, right? Like, the fact that many CRMs are not sharing opt-out. So if you opt out of communication, they're not giving that to the vendors that are communicating with your customers. Like,
under the guise of privacy. And that is the challenge. So many different people have their hands in data ownership. On prior shows, we've talked and asked different vendors who owns what data. And you mentioned there are state laws where they say, hey, in a certain state, this is who owns it, but not everybody's playing by those rules, right?
My big advice to dealers. So Arizona passed the toughest. If you Google the Arizona dealer data law, and we actually have it on our website. If you go to website,
we'll put a link in the show notes. Yep.
Yeah. We show all the state laws and all the work they're doing. My recommendation: every dealer follows CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, whether or not they're in California. Dealers should be telling their vendors, we follow the Arizona dealer data law, whether or not they're in Arizona. Because vendor, you should be following. If you're not following this law in Arizona, you're breaking the law. And I think Arizona, we're going to see in 2025, Arizona start to bring cases forward on that to challenge that law appropriately, right? Because there's still stuff happening in Arizona alone. And I think the dealer should just say, we want you to follow the Arizona dealer data law, even if we're not in Arizona. Why give Arizona dealers this big advantage?
It's the highest standard. And are there companies that are helping with that? Is Comply Auto as an example? There's somebody who's been on CDG in the past. Are there some companies that are helping with that? State associations, I presume, do as well?
The state associations are really the ones that are doing the heavy lifting, NADA and the state associations. I think that they, in general, think that dealers don't care about this, and I think that's a big mistake because one of the shocking things to me is how many tools in automotive cost $3,500 a month. When if I go outside of automotive, that tool costs me $600 a month. And so that is all a reflection. There's so much inflated cost that dealers are paying because it's so hard for vendors to figure out how to get in and get the data. Yeah. And so if we can open up the data, you're going to see costs lower dramatically. And so I think
and the more data freely flows, companies like Foureyes and others that use AI to look at that data, again, thinking about match rate as an input, thinking about close rate as an output, we become better analyzing, looking at that data, and then helping create a better customer experience, right? So data free flow through the dealer is super crucial for all of us to better deliver for our customer.
Yeah, and I think us vendors are doing a disservice to the industry because we're not talking about the times, we're scared to talk about the times where data is not free flowing or some of data is free flowing. Or, time erodes data value. So data gets less value over time. So there's all these instances where you go to the CRM and the CRM says, great, we'll set you up with a data feed. We'll send it to you nightly. Well, if I'm trying to build a great tool, is nightly good enough? If I want to see your pending finance, I should see your pending finance the second you're pending finance. If I'm going to build a tool. So I think we vendors need to speak more honestly about what's going on.
That's awesome. I'm excited to hear you and speak with you and learn more at NADA. There are definitely some companies that are out there that are kind of working to help with that. I know CDK's done some cool things recently to kind of open that up, but there's still much to be done there. So David, absolutely appreciate you being here. Excited to see you at NADA. Excited to learn more about match rate, close rate, data protections. Any closing thoughts or last words as we wrap up?
Come see us booth 3563 NADA. I think it's going to be it's going to be a great NADA. It's going to be a lot of new stuff. It's going to be interesting. A lot of repetitive. You're going to hear the same things over and over as we always do at NADA. And so I hope that we can do things differently and sort of break through the noise.
And I'll tell you, the sales guy that sells 80 to 100 a month, I know his match rate is super high. Therefore, his close rate is outrageously high. I'm going to be fascinated to learn more about the metrics that go into that match rate from you and others, because I think there's a lesson to be learned there, not only in the AI world and digital technology, but even when we think about sales training individual salespeople, the better they get, whether it's AI or technology or just salespeople, the better we get at that match rate, the better our close rate gets. So thanks for bringing that up. Great topic.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. Thank you.